Guys, and welcome back to another video on my channel. Sorry that I look a little bit crazy in today's video. I was just having like a lazy day at home and I do have a topic planned, so I decided to take this time to sit down and film. Also too, both of the dogs are home today, whereas the last time that I filmed, only one of them was home. So if you can hear them in the background, the puppy's sitting right here, so I'll show him to you guys. This is my new dog. This is Frankie. He's so cute. And then Motley is my German Shepherd, but she's somewhere else right now, and hopefully she stays somewhere else so that I can get through filming today's video. Today's video is going to be on the shorter side because this topic just didn't have that much information, but I do think it's interesting and it is something that I wanted to talk about. So with that all being said, let's get right into today's video. Today we're going to be talking about a village that disappeared, and this case is known as the mystery of Lake Anjikuni. I hope I am pronouncing that correctly. The word's spelt kind of odd, and obviously if you watch my videos in the past, you know that I'm not the best at pronouncing things to begin with. So I hope that I'm saying that correctly. Anjikuni Lake is one of several lakes located along the Kazan River in Nunavut, Canada. Several villages existed at this time in the 1930s along the shores of the lake, which were home to the Inuits and was a common and welcoming stopping point for fur trappers because this area was full of beavers and caribou. On a cold day in November of 1930, a Canadian fur trapper by the name of Joe LaBelle had been passing through this village like he had done several times before. He was a well-known fur trapper in the area, and he was planning on stopping in this village for lodging. But when he got to this village, again like he had done several times before, he found that the area had been completely deserted and all of the people who had once lived there and been so welcoming to him were no longer there. Again, this was an area that LaBelle had been to several times before, but this time all of the huts and tents that the people were living in when he had visited this place in the past were completely empty. However, it wasn't just like these places were deserted. They were deserted in a state that looked like the people had just left very, very abruptly. There were meals on these people's counters that were in the process of being eaten or cooked that it looked like they had just been completely walked away from. There was even a fire that was still smoldering when LaBelle arrived to the area. Like the place just was in a state of distress and looked like these people left in a hurry without even a second thought. All of these people's belongings were still there. Again, a fire was still going. Like it looked like these people should have been there, but the place was completely empty. In the past, when LaBelle had passed through, there was about 25 men, women, and children who had lived in this property, but there was nobody here now. Something that LaBelle noted was that there was no sign of a struggle or anything like that, leading to some kind of conclusion as to why these people would just up and abandon their homes. But the place was completely abandoned, and it appeared that these people had left their homes in some kind of a hurry. It's so strange because whatever had happened to this village had caused all of these people to get up and leave every single thing that they owned behind, leaving behind things as if they were just going to come back, but they never did. These kinds of cases aren't completely unheard of. Roanoke is very similar to this in my opinion, but these kinds of cases just absolutely blow my mind. Like, what could possibly cause these people to just completely abandon everything that they have? Dogs that had lived in this village were left behind, and there are two conflicting stories that I've come across while researching for today's video. One saying that there was one dog that was alive, and another saying that all of the dogs in the area had died of starvation. But whether that one was alive or not, the other dogs all did die from starvation, which I think is very odd because one of the notes in this case is that somebody had left seal meat on top of a fire, like it was cooking on a fire, and they completely abandoned it. So the seal meat was out, and it kind of blows my mind to think that the dogs couldn't get to it. I mean, you guys see my dogs, I have two of them, and if they want something bad enough, they can get it. So the fact that these dogs all died of starvation when people were leaving behind food and things that they could get, it blows my mind that the dogs didn't try to get to the food and that they passed away due to starvation. I don't know why, that just is something that really stood out to me. Another thing though is Nunavut is absolutely freezing by November, and I can only imagine at this time, especially along the water, like that's a very snowy, cold area in Canada, like freezing. And the conditions and stuff like that you would benefit a lot from having dogs. So the fact that they would just leave them behind is something that also stands out, because that seems very, very unlikely. Like, dogs were used for working and things like that back then, and they seem like something that would be essential to the village. That wasn't the strangest thing that LaBelle had found when he came across this completely abandoned village. He had found that on the edge of the village, a grave had been dug up, and the stones that were on top of the grave, like the gravestone, was moved very, very meticulously, meaning that this could not have been done by an animal. Because of how strange this scene was, LaBelle traveled to the nearest telegraph office, and this was so that he could contact the RCMP, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it's the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. After talking to LaBelle, the RCMP opened an official investigation into this case and were actually able to get statements from 3 other trappers in the area. A man by the name of Armand Laurent gave a statement along with his 2 adult sons, who all had been trapping again in that area. These men weren't in Anjikuni Lake, like the village, but they were somewhere nearby, and they said in their testimony to investigators that while in that area, they were fur trapping just like LaBelle had planned to do that day. And while they were there, they saw this weird cylinder-like object hovering over them, and it quickly turned into a bullet shape and then took off towards Anjikuni Lake, which is the village that went missing. When the RCMP arrived at the village to investigate, they found the scene exactly how LaBelle had described it to them. All of these people's belongings had been left behind. The body of the dogs were there, their food was there, their kayaks were there, everything was left just as if these people had left in some kind of hurry. And they had also found that it wasn't just one grave that had been dug up, like LaBelle had said. It was every single grave in the area, and all of the headstones from these graves were stacked nice and neatly beside the grave that had been dug up, which does rule out that this could have possibly been done by animals, obviously, because animals can't do that. It was discovered by investigators that the Inuit that lived in this village had been missing for 8 weeks by the time that LaBelle had came across their village. However, they were never ever able to come up with any answers as to where these people went and what happened to them, or what caused them to abandon all of their belongings and their home in such a fashion. With it being almost 100 years since this village was abandoned, you would think that we would have some answers, and we really don't. And there are only 2 real theories in this case that I'm going to be able to cover in today's video. Actually, there are really only 2 theories in this case at all that I could come across, and we're going to talk about both of them now. Investigating cases like this, you can expect to be left with more questions than answers, but a big question that I have in this case is, where did the people go? Like, I don't understand how people can just abandon their homes and then these people never turned up again to tell anybody what had happened, what had caused them all to leave. Like, nobody showed up. There's no answer of where they went. There's nobody that came out and said, oh, I used to live there and we ran away because of, you know, this reason and that reason. There was just never any sign of these people ever again. That is something that I find very hard to believe. My first thought when going into investigating this case is that somebody would have appeared and said, you know, we got chased out by bears, or we got run out by this or that. Like, you would think at least somebody would come forward. Even those kids, once they were grown up, would come forward and be like, this is what happened to me when I was a kid. And the fact that that hasn't happened is so strange. One of the main theories in this case is that the entire village was abducted by aliens, which I guess would explain my questions that I just asked. But this is backed up by the fact that the locals who lived in the villages nearby and those trappers had reported seeing UFOs to the RCMP, and people in that area had also seen what they described as blue lights over the Anjikuni village area on the night that the village was suspected to have completely gone missing. Now again, this theory would answer the questions that I just asked, because obviously nobody's going to come forward and say that they were abducted by aliens if they're still with the aliens, because they would no longer be on this planet. So I guess that does answer my question. Now obviously, as in any case where alien abduction is speculated, there are a lot of people who don't believe this, and a lot of people think LaBelle just completely made this entire thing up. Now, people use the fact that LaBelle didn't have a hunting license at that time when he said that he was out there fur trapping. However, again, he was well known in that area as a fur trapper, and what people are failing to recognize is it was very common at that time to go hunting without a hunting license, because it wasn't something that was commonly checked on or anything like that, whereas it might be today. It was a lot easier to get away with hunting without a hunting license, and so a lot of people were doing it. The Halifax Herald newspaper got a lot of credit for being the first paper to publish LaBelle's story. However, paper. This would later come out that this was not the first paper to have published this story. The first paper that published this story was The Bear, and their article was written by Emmett E. Keller, and this paper is from Virginia, and they never got the recognition that they deserved because people got their paper confused with the Halifax Herald. This was discovered when a man named Brian Dunning from the website Skeptoid was able to trace back the article written by Keller and said that he had discovered several inconsistencies in the story. He said that one of these inconsistencies was the number of people who had lived in the village, which I did come across that when I was looking into this case. I think I said 25, but in some articles they really over exaggerate that number, and in other articles they really lowball that number. It was different every article that I came across. But my question is, does that really discredit the entire story? I mean, again, it has been almost 100 years since this case has happened, and that seems like a very insignificant detail. I mean, I guess if there's like hundreds and hundreds of people who've disappeared, that's like huge. Whereas I guess if there's only 3, like, yeah, that's really alarming, but it's not that many people. But like, I just feel like it's been almost 100 years. Obviously there's going to be little twists and bits in the cases that gets, you know, over exaggerated and whatnot, because that happens in every single case, cryptids, anything like that. I just don't think that it discredits the entire story. He also said that a lot of the UFO encounter stories are really over embellished now, and they're not the same as they were back when LaBelle first told the story. And I just think that it's possible that the story kind of got lost in translation. I don't think that it needs to be completely discredited, and I don't think that that just proves that it's not true. I just think that it's been over 100 years and people over embellish a lot of stories, you know, when it's going from ear to ear. It's just the way the world and everything like that works. It's not really, you know, ideal, but it is what happens a lot of the time. Another thing that I thought was strange while I investigated or researched for this case was that there wasn't very many other theories that were talked about, like that the villagers had been chased out by a wild animal, extreme weather, or even something like a cryptid, but none of this had been mentioned in anybody's investigation into this case at all. I honestly don't know how I feel about this case. I feel like that first it really had me and I really believed it, but by the end I wasn't really sure, and honestly I don't know how I feel. I don't know if I think this happened. I don't know if LaBelle made it up, but my question always is, when people think that somebody made up a story like this, is why? Why would they make up a story like this? You know what I mean? So I don't really know how I feel about this one. I don't really have like a concrete opinion on it, but if you do, I would love to know what you guys think about this case down below. But guys, that is going to bring us to the end of today's video. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.